Welcome. My name is Steve Stein. I'm the founder of BetterListen and WisdomFeed, and we are very excited and happy and proud to offer this teaching with John Kabat-Zinn, mindful micro practices, not missing your moments, no matter what is happening. So welcome everyone from all around the world, and welcome, John.
Um, thanks, Steve. Good to be back with you. I think we should tell people that you and I go back decades, many decades. You can say how many, but I've lost
It's
track,
it's 40 years
at least.
at least, right? Probably
Yeah.
a little bit more. So uh, yeah, it's been just a pleasure and an honor to be friends with John and support each other along the way in various ways. And yeah, we were just talking a little bit ago, and we started talking about micro practices. And I didn't know what John would think about as a subject, because the attention span of people it has changed so dramatically. So here we are. We're here uh, chatting, but I hope there'll be some practice, and then there'll be Q&A in the middle, and then some more uh, didactic lecture, kind of, so to speak, towards the end.
Actually, Steve, why don't we just dive into a short practice, right off the bat to sort of set the stage and, in some sense, tune the instrument of attention. So, as you can see, we're here from many different time zones, and in fact, I see a galaxy, the image of a galaxy. Maybe somebody's tuning in from another galaxy. If you have your cameras on, that would be helpful so that we can just sort of drink each other in on our screens, so to speak, because thank you, there's something very powerful about actually being together in this way. And most of us are probably at home. And it's very rare that we're in each other's homes or that we get together in all of our homes at the same time. So this is a kind of metaphor for the meditation practice in a way, because we're all at home. And the question is, can we be at home in this present moment in our body? Whether you are in your physical, domicile or not. So that's the real practice. And then the question of kind of micro practices is there's nothing but micro practices, because life exists only in the present moment. Everything else is either memory or anticipation. So there really is only now. And now, some people say, well, now is not exactly like the present moment. I was just talking or discussing this with a physicist friend of mine, because the way they define the present moment, the present moment is now, but when we rest in awareness, the awareness includes everything. It includes this moment, but this moment actually includes, thoughts that come up in this moment, memories that come up in this moment, anticipations about future moments. So it's all right here, right now. And the question is, can we find a way to take up residency in this now, in this moment of now, and let that become our kind of default mode or our address, so to speak, that we live in awareness. We live in awareness. And therefore, we can be aware of the fact that we're thinking about the past, memories, thinking about the future and planning and worrying. And we're also here in the body in this moment, breathing. And yet awareness, there's no problem holding all of that and not being attached to any of it, and just being itself, which is intrinsically stable. So it's a very wonderful place to train ourselves to take up residency more in awareness. So let's take a few moments to actually drop into silence. Of course, you being silent, and I have to talk a little, at least, to guide us. But the invitation is to actually drop underneath my words to where they're pointing, and just appreciate for a moment the motivation behind your tuning in at all to this gathering. For many of you, it's late at night or early in the morning, or, there has to be some major motivation here to choose to be here rather than someplace else, especially since we tend to spend so much time on our devices anyway. So there's something really remarkable about your motivation. And let's just rest in awareness of the fact that we've all made that choice, and here we are, around the world, but also right here in this timeless moment we call now, no matter where we find ourselves. And befriending it through just putting out the welcome mat for whatever is moving through the mind in terms of thoughts or emotions, however it is in the body, including whether you're really tired or feeling energized. And just letting go of the thought stream altogether. And I'll even stop my voice stream for a while and just follow the original invitation that brought you to this gathering into full awareness in this very moment. Now, ordinarily, as you all well know, it doesn't take very long for us to realize that our mind has a life of its own. And even though we've been invited to rest in awareness, our attention is infinitely distractible. And we can get carried away into the future, lost in memories in the past, getting caught up in the momentum of the story of me, starring me, and what's the matter, or how great things are, or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, the awareness evaporates. Your body's still here, still breathing, but where's the awareness when you're lost in thought? And in the next minute, and I don't want to startle you, and I have my eyes closed, but I'm going to clap my hands. In the next minute, second, microsecond, nanosecond, we can be here again. There's nothing wrong with thinking or dreaming or getting lost in thought or emotions. But as soon as you recognize it, you're back in awareness. And so in a sense, we're always really at home. That's our default setting. But then we get distracted or carried away. So can we actually drop into these micro moments? Just the snap of a finger is too slow. Are you here? Are we here? And what about now? And what about now? And without making it into a kind of foot race or, an oppressive challenge, just inviting yourself to recognize that life is nothing but present moments, virtually timeless present moments. And those timeless present moments aren't the enemy of the past or the future, because awareness contains the past and the future in the present. And awareness is actually free from thought. Even if thought is going on, the awareness isn't caught up in the thought when there is awareness. When there's no awareness, then you're carried downstream by the thought. With awareness, just thought, and then gone. Another thought, gone. Feeling, gone. You recognize it, it self-liberates. Recognize it, self-liberates. The recognition is like a finger touching a soap bubble. Just goes poof. And so in that sense, there can be what feels like a continuous sense of moment-to-moment awareness. Even though really this is the only moment. Then this only moment extends itself right through our entire time together in this meditation and when we're dialoguing in conversation. So silence and stillness become your friends in a new way when you relate to the present moment like this. You don't have to fill up your moments. Of course, the mind will do that anyway. But if you orient yourself in this way, then mindfulness becomes your default mode. And you can live here. It becomes your new address. And it doesn't need a story. It doesn't need to be filled up with thought or any kind of a narrative. It's just this moment. And if I clap my hands, the ears had to hear it, but did it register in awareness? Again. Notice we don't have to judge it or make a story about it. Why is he clapping? Why doesn't he play music? Why doesn't he have a gong or a drum? No, it's just that happened. Comes, goes. We maintain our equilibrium, our wakefulness, our awareness. And so that can happen walking down the street. Are you in touch with your feet? Are you in touch with the ground? Are you in touch with the air? Are you in touch with the soundscape, the lightscape, the airscape. Moment by moment by moment. Resting in awareness. Okay, so if your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them and notice that the invitation of mindfulness is really to have your entire life be recognized as only unfolding now. And in that sense, the meditation never ends. And you've been engaged in it long before you tuned into this particular Zoom event, because there had to be some motivation to actually do it. Motivation is like the most fundamental part of meditation practice. What's your motivation? And it's kind of got an element of love associated with it. Of course, your motivation is going to be related to what you most care about, what you most want in a certain way, or what you most love. Even if it's just getting away from all the stress or the pain or whatever. I mean, it's not just an escape, it's actually a moving towards something that you may feel is missing or there's not enough of. And that feeling's wrong, because you're already complete in this moment, even if you're under enormous stress or in enormous pain. And so these micro practices and mindfulness in any context really remind us all that we can drop into this moment, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's seriously problematic, and bring the full dimensionality of who we are to this moment, which is super helpful in problem solving, especially in emotionally fraught circumstances, uncomfortable situations of all kinds. Doesn't it make sense that to show up in your fullness as your best self is probably the smartest strategy that you could possibly recruit? And all that takes is remembering. You don't have to remember what your smartest, best self strategy is, because it comes out of here and it's trustworthy. So it doesn't have to be programmed. In fact, programming it makes for attachment to an outcome, whereas just being fully who you are is a kind of radical act of affirming your beauty, your love, the miracle of being alive and having a human life at this particular moment, because we're not here for that all that long. And so the kind of interesting connection between these micro moments, or these like mini meditations, and the ongoing unfolding of one's life, which you could see as one big meditation. One big meditation. Born, live your life, die. And in between, how much of it did you miss? How much of it do we regret because we weren't really there, or we reacted emotionally when we really needed to recruit our greater intelligences and respond more the way we wanted to, but we got in our own way? If any of this is making sense to you, just raise your hand so I can get a feedback from you that, okay, you see, it's like we're all pretty much wired up the same way. So thank you. So in a sense, life itself, as many of you've probably heard me say before, life is the real meditation. And the real meditation only unfolds in timeless present moments. So whether you want to think of it as like a 45-minute body scan or 45 minutes of sitting meditation, it's not 45 minutes. It's moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. And that means if you're at the sink washing dishes, if anybody washes dishes anymore, I don't actually have a dishwasher, so I actually do the dishes a lot. When you're at the sink washing dishes, are you at the sink washing dishes? You can check, because maybe your mind is totally someplace else while you're washing the dishes, but you miss the actual dishwashing. The same for like saying goodnight to somebody or hugging a grandchild or a child or whatever it is. Is it mechanical, or are you fully present for it? So in that sense, each moment is a kind of micro meditation. And how long we meditate, that really is, by the clock, is really a matter of has a lot of power to it, because over a lifetime, it's non-trivial to liberate ourselves from the tyranny of our own minds, especially worrying, anxiety. If any of you ever experience anxiety, raise your hands. Okay. So again, there's nothing wrong with anxiety. It's just the mind perseverating in a certain way. But it can be really eroding of it has all sorts of negative side effects. But if you hold the anxiety in awareness, all of a sudden it doesn't have all those negative side effects. It's just anxiety or anger or fear. So mindfulness or awareness, because I use those two words synonymously, awareness is like a superpower. It's a hidden dimension that we're all born with. Nobody needs to get it. We already have it. But can we learn how to make it our permanent address? Like, I live here in awareness, as opposed to I live in my thoughts. And yes, thoughts will still come and go and visit me and torment me and everything else. But if my default mode is awareness, then I have a different relationship to those thoughts. I don't take them personally, and they can't dominate me in the same way. And when they do, I can remind myself and rebody myself in awareness to actually instantly transform my relationship with the unwanted stuff. It doesn't mean that we're not dealing with stress, pain, and illness and all sorts of horrible challenges being human, because as humanity, is facing all sorts of incredibly difficult challenges. And the earth is facing incredibly difficult challenges. But we don't want to lose our minds in the face of all these challenges, because what we really need to do is discover our minds and our hearts and come from that place and help solve not only our own dilemmas and challenges and stress and problems, but in some sense, the suffering of the world, because the world is made up of us. So, I haven't told you a thing that you don't already know, every single one of you. So it's totally, kind of obvious and intuitive that this moment is everything, because the past is over and the future hasn't happened yet. And we do know that we're going to at some point check out of at least this life. And Thoreau, our famous philosopher from the early 19th century, is famous for having said he went off to live by a lake, a pond called Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts in the 1830s, I believe. And, he just kind of more or less isolated himself for several years at this pond in a little cabin, which you can go and visit, a recreation of it if you ever go to Concord, Massachusetts. And he's famous for having said, I went to the woods to live deliberately, to front, which means to confront, only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what they had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. You know, that moment right before you're going to die, when you actually really wake up and realize, oh my God, I didn't have to be that angry or that frightened or that contracted or that mean-spirited as much as that wasn't really me. And then you die. So it would be really good to avoid that by die now, get it over with, die to the past, die to the future, and wake up and be born into, in a certain way, this moment by timeless, infinitely short present moment. And then that's like the thread that you can put beads on and strings all your moments together in a way that actually offers a certain kind of beauty. You carry yourself differently. You carry yourself differently in the gravitational field, in the emotional field, in the family field, in the work field, because you're here and most people are not. They're caught up in wanting or not wanting, or anger or whatever it is. And of course we are too, but we know it. And that knowing gives us that Archimedes fulcrum, that extra dimension, that leverage to liberate ourselves, not right before we die, but right now. And so that's like a prescription for really falling awake or being alive. And basically, that's all I have to say, at least now.
Got it. So let me do this, and I'll do this. So one thought, I have a question, and then people want to ask questions. I guess best thing
we do want to have a lot of questions. I wouldn't say questions, but just conversation, dialogue.
So I guess you could raise your hand and then we'll start a line. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We're in the React, the heart button. There's a little hand you could raise there. But you know.
But you have a first question.
What's that?
You have a first question or comment.
I have a first question or comment. So the clap. You know, it makes me think, because I'm in various ends of production, like all my life, audio, video, film, hopefully, whatever. But, you know, they do that, take one.
Yeah, that's true.
The technical reason why they do that is because they have a separate sound person doing sound and separate person doing the lip movement, you know, this person speaking. And by doing that, there's a blip on the audio and it's very easy to sync up. So it's almost like a micro practice to sync up or to wake up. So I know when I've never heard you clap in a meditation before, but maybe I just missed it. But anyway, that's a thought that I had, that it's, you know, that it reminds me of syncing up and, you know, getting present.
Well, if we take a break during this 2 hours, I'll go downstairs and get something that's called a muktak from Korea, which they use quite effectively, which is kind of a carved gourd from a tree that you hit with a stick. And very often they will use that to start a period of silent meditation and then end a period of silent meditation. Now, if you're sitting there daydreaming when the muktak gets hit, you'll jump 6 feet off your cushion. You know, it's like cut. And in many Zen monasteries, they do either that or they clack 2 wooden sticks together, because it's like, we don't want to be like romantic, so we're not going to use nice, you know, harmonious bells to say, oh, now it's all over, and no, but just like that. So Yeah, different traditions relate to the meditation practice, of course, very differently. But that's certainly an august one to just kind of, hey, let's not romanticize this too much. When it's over, it's over, and when it's over, of course, the meditation's never over. So that's the formal practice that we're doing together is over, but the next moment, as much as the meditation practice, is the one before the clap.
Got it. So I see Annie has her hands up. You want to unmute yourself?
Hi, John. Hi, Steve. Great to see you both tonight and everyone
Hi.
else.
Where are you calling from on Cape Cod?
Mid-Cape in the Dennis area.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, nice to see you again. I want to keep this short. I've been reading Larry's book about living and dying.
Larry
And
Rosenberg's book.
yes, I hope he's well.
The latest one or his earlier book on
I don't know
living
which
and dying?
version it is or edition it is. It's just I bought it about 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, no, he just has a new book that just come out.
Oh, great.
A
I will
very,
grab
very
that.
powerful book. We're talking about Larry Rosenberg, by the way, for the rest of you, who's my oldest friend and Dharma brother. And he just came out with a book a month or two ago called The World Exists. Get this. The title of the book is The World Exists to Set Us Free. And it is very, very personal. So it's like a journey along with Larry, his whole meditative career, so to speak, through, basically 10 decades. So please go ahead.
He's an inspiration. So I grew up with an Armenian genocide survivor's daughter and grandmother, and my mom had some OCD around dying and was dying every day and would always go to bed at night and Armenians say Deda Gamana, which means if I wake up tomorrow, and she would recite what I needed to do if she died. And I grew up with that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Armenian genocide, underscored genocide. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a level of trauma that is truly unimaginable. And so when you actually experienced it, and you survive, you're carrying something for the rest of your life. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so her mom, lost her whole family and had a journey here, and on the boat coming to America, got pregnant at age 13, and had my mom. So generational trauma for sure, really. And if we can hold space for that, for all the genocides and the ones that continue today,
Yes.
being mindful how that impacts us. Even if we weren't directly related to any genocide, we're all connected, right? So mom had a lot of generational trauma, and in her later years, she was hyper focused on her blood pressure, and she had a book like this where she would write all day long her blood pressure readings, and it really became
That would be
obsessive.
enough to give you high blood pressure.
She had high blood
Yeah,
pressure,
I'm sure.
but she lived to 98, and I took her off all her meds the last year, 5 years of her life, and she lived 5 more years. So that was a testament to her.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, after I took care of her in hospice in my home on the Cape, and it was pretty grueling. I was on cortisol and adrenaline for 9 months caring for her. And she died with me. I was with her. And after that, I kind of physically fell apart and started having uh, heart issues and anxiety and a lot of blood pressure stuff. And I suddenly became quite sick. And it was right around the pandemic when I started doing the mitigation retreat. So really my journey with you, John, was incredibly instrumental, and with Soren and all the other teachers. But now, flash forward 4 years, I'm still afraid of dying. And I'm not afraid to die and having the light switch go off. I'm afraid of leaving my daughter
Yeah.
and my cat and my plants. I mean, it's a little obsessive, and I'm aware of it. But I guess what I want to talk about is coming to terms with death, and the people that we leave behind, and how we worry about that aspect of dying. And if you could speak to that somehow in the moment, to tap into my awareness is in and out, but it's hard to sustain it. The overwhelming thoughts sometimes become too prominent. Thank you, John.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, since all of us are going to die at some point, we all know that, but nobody actually operates that way. We always think everybody else is going to die and it's not a problem, and I'm not going to die, so I never have to think about it. And that goes on for decades and decades and decades until it doesn't. And depending on what your family situation is and how much trauma and genocide history there is in your family, I mean, of course, death can take a very prominent role very early in life, and it shapes one's whole relationship to reality. And so everybody in a certain way has to recognize that the present moment is both long-lasting and gone immediately, okay? And there's a new present moment until there isn't. And the more we can actually appreciate the moments that we have and not be tyrannized by our thoughts about the future or the past, the more we can be aware of those thoughts that have to do with death and dying without being imprisoned by them. This is a kind of lifetime's work, a practice that with every decade, as far as I can see, because I'm now in my, I think, 9th decade, things look different depending on your history and your family and, your own health and well-being. So my suggestion is that you trust in awareness, that you trust that you can let awareness, as I was saying during the guided meditation, become your default mode. And you just live here. And then when you notice your anxiety or your tension or what's going on in your body even, that's all part of the curriculum, but it's not the entire curriculum. The entire curriculum is awareness itself. And in other words, how you hold it. So you've got this extra, I call it a dimension, this extra dimension. I keep losing you on my screen. It's going from one thing to another. So, and I like to make eye contact with you. So wave your hand so I can find you right now. Oh, there you are. Okay, now you're big on my screen again. Thanks. So the more you can discover or recover this dimension of you where you're okay, that the anxiety is the anxiety, but that's not who you are. Okay, and the trauma is the trauma, and that's also not who you are. You are more awareness itself than you are any of the rest of it. Okay, but we're not trained that way. We're not told that even. It's not pointed out to us, and we don't exercise the muscle to inhabit it more of the time, which is basically what Larry's book is about. And so we have to befriend this new dimension of experience that's been here all along, namely awareness, And then it transforms our anxious thoughts about what's going to happen. And it can actually influence how healthy you are. We've shown that over and over again in MBSR, with people, even in 8 weeks of exposure to mindfulness practice, people with chronic illnesses report major symptom reductions, and then that extends out for sometimes years afterwards if you keep practicing. So I would say that the most important thing is to maybe look at the story that you're telling yourself, whatever it is about your mom and the genocide and yourself and everything else, and see if you can find a bigger story. Okay, that would include why the hell you're even meditating. And not like because you get some special result, but the intelligence that's even bringing you to meditate. That intelligence is trustworthy, and it's never been traumatized. Never. So all scars take place within something larger because something has to hold the scars. Okay, and your awareness is capable of holding those scars. Now, you may not believe that, but what I'm asking you to do is play with it in a friendly way as a meditation practice. Just take a peek from moment to moment. Like, what if I just held it in awareness without pushing it away or pursuing it, without believing all my thoughts that are so powerful, and the stories that are so powerful, but they're not necessarily the whole story or even the true story in its fullness. That's what I would suggest you do, and do it just as we've been speaking of from the beginning, moment by moment by moment. So it's not like some philosophy you're imposing on yourself, but it's like, in this moment, where's my mind? And can I liberate it in this moment just by seeing that, it's stuck in that same old narrative? And see if you don't try to even find a new narrative, just be in not knowing. Okay, see that, but the seeing of it is not stuck in it. Next moment, next breath. Does that resonate with you? I see a smile on your face, so I'm assuming it resonates on some level.
It's like a Christmas present. It's just a reminder. And I think incrementally taking it moment by moment, and rather than taking the whole emotional feeling that overwhelms me at that
Yeah, of
moment, or
course.
anyone, that's not manageable.
No,
But
it is not
just,
manageable.
yeah. And I think anybody can take anything that they want to talk about this afternoon and apply it in this simple way. And what brought some emotion to me is the fact that we're all here right now, and that we have that awareness to be here because we know how
Yeah,
profoundly impactful it
it's
is.
more than awareness. It's a kind of intentionality that nobody's here by accident. Everybody's got better things to do. If you tune into something like this together, it's because some part of you really already knows and cares that there's a way to live that's freer and more who you really, really, really are. And maybe when you hear a teacher or a guided meditation, that reminds you of what you already know. But ultimately, the real meditation teacher is life itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to raise their hand, if you just unmute yourself. But I found that interesting that in terms of a micro practice, doesn't necessarily have to be sit down and meditate or take 3 deep breaths. It could just be as you're living your life, notice you're in your story and somehow that's a micro practice
Well,
too.
totally. I mean, yeah. What I'm basically pointing to, Steve, is that life is the meditation practice. So if you're digging in the garden, or if you're, trying to, you know, put a crying 6-month-old to bed, or whatever it is, that's your practice. And not only that, that that baby or that condition, whatever it is, the person who's giving you a hard time, that's your meditation teacher. So then, I mean, I even have a book out that's called Letting Everything Become Your Teacher. Because everything is a teaching if we're open to it. And then it gives us that access. We have the degree of freedom, that we have awareness, but accessing it when we need it so that we don't drive ourselves crazy and get super stressed out. It's that access that requires reminding. And the micro practices are like, yeah, this moment.
So if you notice yourself perseverating or thinking about a story,
Yeah.
do you clap, or is there some, how do
Hold
you
on a second. I'm going to shut off my video, go downstairs for a second, and come back.
get his stick? Well, welcome everyone.
Steve, I put the books from Larry in the chat that John and I were referencing. The first one is the new book John was mentioning, and the second book is the one that I've been reading, which really helps talk about death. Thank you.
Absolutely. And how did you find Larry Rosenberg's work initially?
It was really helpful in that as I get into my 60s and understand the mortality closer to my reality, it really was very profoundly impactful. His words are great, and his writing was easy to read, and I highly recommend it.
Cool.
Okay, this is what I was talking about. Let me see if you can see this. This was given to me by
Wow.
my colleague, MBSR teacher in Korea named Hae-Young An, who's just a really phenomenal character. And he went to great lengths to have one made for me. And this is the stick, and it's called a muktak. And they use it to start and end meditations in Zen temples in Korea. So. Of course, you don't need this. All you need to do is. So the point is that, and a clap works just as fine. As I said, in Japanese monasteries, they'll whack 2 blocks of wood together, square, rectangular blocks. It's like really loud, whack. So there's kind of something about it that's like different from a bell, a little less romantic. I can float into that, the bell sound disappearing. No, it's like meditation's over. Did you miss it? Here's another one. And so they're all just different creative ways to remind us that this is it. This is it. There is no other life. The life we're living right in this moment is the life in the one moment. And that's, you could say a curse, but it's also a gift. It's a gift if you're willing to actually ground yourself in the full dimensionality of your being. So let me just say a word or two about some neuroscience studies. Like if you take a person and put them in an fMRI scanner. And you tell them not to do anything. Don't just lie there. It's like a cigar-shaped tube. And the instruction is just lie there, don't do anything. And then they move you into the magnet. So you're in this confined tube in a giant magnet, which is banging quite loudly all the time. There's several magnets and they're just banging. So there's a lot of noise, sound. And they tell you, don't do anything. We're just gonna, invite you to rest there. So when you're invited to rest and not do anything, this whole region of the brain, it turns out, generates an awful lot of electrical activity. And when they ask people, well, what are you doing in there? We told you not to do anything. We say, well, I'm just thinking. And what are you thinking about? Well, when you ask the question, what are people thinking about? What do you think they're thinking about? They're thinking about themselves. Like, what I have to do when I get out of this fMRI machine? Did I put enough money in the parking meter? What do I have to make for dinner? I have the shopping list, or I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about that. And it's like, that's what we default to. That's why this whole region is called the default mode network, because every time you put somebody in the scanner, you see all this activity in that region, because they basically start generating the story of me, starring me, and how great it is, or how bad it is, or how blah it is, doesn't matter. But when you take people who have been through even one 8-week program in MBSR and you put them in the scanner, as Zindel Siegel and his colleagues did at the University of Toronto, you see an attenuated activity in that region after 8 weeks of mindfulness training. And you see other activities in other regions of the brain, like the insula, which has a kind of map of the body in a certain way. And so, and what do they interpret that to? Well, the people, after they're practicing mindfulness, they can just be here. And they don't have to fall into thinking, or if they do, because of course you can't immunize us to not think. It's not about trying not to think, but we have a different relationship to the thinking, so that doesn't feed the default mode network, and instead we can just be. And what they're picking up on is different ways in which the brain is activated when you're just being. So that's really interesting, because, awareness can actually transform our behavior. When we're aware that we're doing something that's actually not good for us or self-destructive, it's really hard to change behaviors. But awareness is akin to wisdom. When you really see what the negative consequences are of a certain kind of habit pattern or behavior, then your motivation to change it really is different. And what we're talking about here, since the theme is micro practices, the motivation is sustaining, but when we're intentionally catching it in these brief moments, then we self-correct in the brief moment, or if you don't want to use self-correct, we tune or remember that hidden dimension, or we wake up in that moment just enough so that we short circuit the perseverating, the I, me, and mining. And in the meditative traditions, that's referred to as a moment of liberation, because what is being liberated is our attachment to the story of me, which is a real problem, the story of me, because no matter whether it has to do with the laundry list, or, the shopping list, or the what's wrong with me list, the story of me is never big enough, because the real you is like boundless spaciousness, it's like awareness. Awareness, you can't find the edge of it. You can't find the center of it, because awareness is like space. It's boundless. And I won't even say it's yours. I mean, you could say your awareness, but I've stopped talking that way years ago because, we didn't do anything to acquire awareness. You can't say it's mine, or even that mine is different from yours. We don't even know. Nobody knows what awareness is or how it comes about. I mean, that's really a gigantic mystery. And yet it's a superpower and we all already have it. What we don't have is ready access. So that's why we practice. And the way to practice, moment by moment by moment by moment. It's always this moment, and it's always, this is it. At the crossroads of here and now. It's so simple. I mean, it's almost like calling it meditation is kind of gilding the lily in a certain way. It's making a story out of that, where it's really like, just wake up. That's why the Zen people often don't like to use words, and they use koans and puzzles and, kind of all sorts of mind thought stopping kind of dialogue. It's all a kind of compassionate effort to get us to be who we already are and always have been before we die. So that's why I say, die now, get it over with, and the rest is like free.
So is there kind of like a ritual or something you do? I mean, or someone can do without actually clapping, or just take a breath and come back to
Yeah,
now?
I don't clap. I mean, I'm only doing that because we're on TV. I mean, no, I don't clap, and I don't use this. I mean, I just happen to have it. No, it's like, and it's just this breath, this moment, all the guided meditations, all of the books, all the practices, they're all pointing at what we're just talking about. So we don't need any, we really don't need any scaffolding. But to the degree that we're comfortable having some support or some scaffolding or conversations like this, then they're just reminders that remind us that we're already okay. Or as we like to say to people who are referred to us in the stress reduction clinic before they take the MBSR program, and they come with every conceivable medical diagnosis in the world, and we say to them, look, from our perspective, as long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you, no matter what's wrong. And we're going to pour energy in the next 8 weeks and through the meditation practice into what's right with you. Let the rest of the medical team take care of whatever you might be associated with your diagnoses, and see what happens. And what happens is very often that things change, symptoms dissolve or reduce in frequency and severity, for one thing. And people feel, in general, a greater sense of agency, of like, I've got this in this moment. If I start thinking about the future, maybe I don't got it. Maybe I'm gonna, and what happens when the pain comes back? Well, that's a thought. So you don't have to be oppressed by the thought. Just you'll deal with when the pain comes back, you'll deal with the pain. But right now, you're exercising a muscle that will help you deal with the future if pain comes back, because you're dealing with at this moment, absence of pain. It's a gift. And so we don't need to get anxious around the future or perseverate around the past and blame and all of that kind of stuff. And that's liberating, it's freeing, and it's also healthy on every level that people have been able to study it so far.
I
All of
like
this is in its infancy, by the way. Even though the science of mindfulness is maybe 30 years old, 30 years is nothing. I mean, let's come back in 200 or 300 years and see how we're doing.
Well, you remind me of the when Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the non-toothache. It's
Yeah,
like you don't appreciate not having a toothache when you don't have it.
that's right.
And I had it with my foot. I pushed myself playing basketball 2 years ago, and then it took a year and a half to get better, but now I appreciate that I can walk.
Yeah,
My non-foot ache,
yeah,
you know. Uh, uh,
totally, totally. I mean, that's a really powerful practice, is to actually gratitude, gratitude practice for what you're not carrying at the present moment.
I find sometimes, like not spontaneously, but when life throws a curveball and they keep coming, because, I guess as long as we're alive, whatever metaphor, you know, so I just so oftentimes go into the gratitude, well, this is good, my foot's good. And that kind of gets me out of the default mode, at least for, it unhooks me because, you could go the whole day in your default mode and then, you miss your day and the whole idea of missing your life. But gratitude, I think it is what's you can focus more on what's right with you.
Another skill is equanimity, and God knows we need it big time in this world at the moment, is not losing our minds when we most need our minds. It doesn't mean that we're okay with all of the horrors that are unfolding in the world. But if we lose our minds in the face of all of those horrors, what use is that? So cultivating a certain kind of deep balance that, and can start with the body. So equanimity about the state of my body, so to speak.
So part of what we do in Wisdom Feed, we try to take ancient ideas down to street level, practical things. So, how do you, so how would you describe the term equanimity to like someone on the street in Manhattan? Because it's like if you were translating it down to what it means, rather than a word that, oh, sounds like a textbook word. But I'm just, how would you kind of, you know,
Well, it's another superpower. It's one of four superpowers in the Buddhist tradition. That are called the four immeasurables because they are so boundless and powerful. So one of them is metta, or loving kindness. One of them is compassion. One of them is empathic joy for other people when they have something positive happen in their lives. And the fourth one is equanimity, which is a certain kind of stabilized balance of mind where you don't lose your mind even in the face of truly horrifying circumstances. So that's easy to say, not easy to do, but everything we've been talking about is easy to say, not easy to embody, because just capturing one moment is a big challenge. So it requires practice, or what I sometimes say is exercising the muscle of equanimity. So in the state of the world, for instance, right at this moment, you could lose your mind out of either anxiety or anger, and also sadness, at the horrors that people are experiencing, the number of refugees and the mounting constantly, people who are displaced from their homelands, and people who are in prison unjustly, and people who are in war zones, And it's like, hey, John, stop. I mean, you're going to overwhelm me. I'm going to be completely overwhelmed with this kind of thing. It's happening all the time. The question is, how are we to be in wise relationship to it? So one way is just shut it all out and don't pay any attention to it until it's your turn. And then by then it's too late. Or you hold it in awareness with equanimity and compassion. And that's, again, it's a practice, it's a cultivation of a kind of dispassion so that you don't lose your humanity, and at the same time you don't exhaust yourself or destroy yourself in the process of trying to change a world that is not ready to change, but to not lose your intention to contribute to that transformation in every way that you can. So that would be equanimity. But, is it easy? No. But is mindfulness easy? None of this is easy. It's just that if we don't give ourselves over to that aspect of our being, then in a certain way we're asleep at the wheel. And that also has consequences. So I hope that helps in terms of equanimity. They're called the four immeasurables in the Buddhist tradition, because they really are immeasurable. And I love that. And they're also related, they're also called the divine abodes. And I love that because, we don't use the word abode all that much in English, but an abode is someplace where you abide. And if you remember the dude abides, right? And it's a beautiful word, to abide. Can we abide in the present moment with things exactly as they are? That doesn't mean we don't try to change the world, but how can we be in wise relationship to it so we don't destroy ourselves in the process of transforming the world, of healing the world? So this is that's the curriculum for humanity at this moment on planet Earth, I think, because otherwise we have set forces loose with the kind of technology that we have now, where, Ukraine, for instance, is basically an experimental system for testing mechanical AI-driven ways of killing more and more people. And robots will soon follow. Robot armies, this is like a certain kind of a trend. And where do we humans fit in? I mean, is it going to be possible for us to actually find a way to save the world and to save ourselves from our own deepest aggressive and othering impulses? And so that's when you spend time on the cushion, it truly is a liberative practice, because you could drive yourself crazy thinking about all of those kinds of things. It's not that they're not true and important, but that's where we cultivate equanimity, clarity of mind. When we need to act, we need to act. But in this moment, maybe we don't. And maybe we just hold the world in compassion, hold the world in loving kindness, hold the world in empathic joy. Not miss the flowers. Thich Nhat Hanh is famous for having said to his monastic brethren, sisters and brothers, who were carrying bodies of their comrades to the charnel grounds during the bombings of Hue and during the Vietnam War. And he said to them, don't lose sight of the flowers growing by the side of the road while you're carrying these corpses to the charnel grounds. Okay? There's also beauty even in the midst of all that craziness. And yeah.
Yeah, so you invoke the dude, uh,
I did.
and it's hard for me not to smile when I think of the dude. But one of the things
Yeah,
that,
maybe we should explain who that is to people from other countries or who don't know what we're talking about. I'll leave that to you to do. The Big
well, I'll do my
Lebowski.
best.
It was a movie.
There was a movie, The Big Lebowski, and
Jeff Bridges played.
yeah, it was the Coen brothers, and he was just like this enlightened dude who drank White Russians, who, he was like a full spectrum of living, but a lot of wisdom came, just kept coming out of his mouth, and he was kind of like a guru, but he was wearing a bathrobe and having a cocktail. But it was the dude abides. I think about that a lot. But one of the things that in a conversation that we had years ago, uh, the idea of like a digital Sabbath. And one of the things that the dude does, he doesn't roll on Shabbat. He doesn't go bowling on the Sabbath, the dude in the movie. So how can we be in relation to our technology? Like it's easy to say, just put it down. I think, what Jonathan Haidt is doing now, in phones, you check your phone at the door kind of thing in school that he's helping happen. But how can we manage uh, is there a micro practice or a way to like pick your phone up and not feel guilty or kind of thing, or just be on your phone when you're
I'll
on?
check. Let me ask ChatGPT if there's a way. Yeah, this has changed everything. And I know some of the people that designed the iPhone. And it was designed to be maximally addictive. And that was even before the invention of apps. And so we now, I mean, this is science fiction. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, maybe this was science fiction. This came about in 2009, I think. And before that, there were a few years of like portable phones, but they were like the size of the size of a large camera or something like that. So the world is totally different now. We've moved into the digital age like gangbusters, and now with AI and AGI, artificial general intelligence looming on the horizon, where the machines will continue to, develop the next generation of machines. We don't know what's going to happen. So we're at a critical moment on planet Earth. And I would say that mindfulness, if it was important, for the past 2,500 years, it's infinitely more important since 2009, since the invention of these portable devices and everything that's following in their wake, including the drones and the robots and everything else. Because the digital world has the potential to so infiltrate the analog world to the point where we no longer are in touch with our analog beauty, our moments, because our moments are being colonized. Literally, they're being colonized. And when people do studies, I mean, psychologists do studies. How many times a day on average do people think to check their phone? And it's in the 300 times a day. I mean, it partly depends on age, but 300 times a day, the mind is going, I wonder if there's something more interesting happening than now in the present moment. So you could say from that point of view, meditation doesn't stand a chance because, wow, this moment of now, this analog moment of now, how can that compare to somebody who, wants to tell me something, or a YouTube video, or, of my favorite whoever. So the mind is just, if it was going crazy before in the fMRI scanner, it doesn't need the fMRI scanner. It's going crazy all the time because it's missing. What am I missing? What do I need to feel complete? And people walk down the street clutching these things, whether they're talking on them or not, to feel complete. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Well, never mind your phone. Where's your heart? Where's your mind in this moment? Are you not complete in this moment? The moment after you die, if you imagine Thoreau didn't say, where's my phone? I'm about to die. I better call somebody. So this is a kind of generational thing because the younger people have grown up and they never knew a time without this. So we're in this kind of colossal moment where we need to, in some sense, recognize the power of the analog world and the fact that we are the result. We are the result. Our bodies and minds and society are the result of 13.8 billion years of non-AI driven evolution. We don't know what the intelligence was that gave rise to the Big Bang, because if there wasn't intelligence, because our science is saying there was this Big Bang, or maybe it was bang, 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 bang all over the place, but nobody knows where the bangs come from. So even science is really stymied when it comes to the ultimate question of origins. But the fact is that if we are the result of 13.8 billion years of evolution, that's not too shabby. And we're that way without the phones and without the devices. And if we give that up, if we lose that 13.8 billion years of refined beauty, intelligence, humanity itself, well, I think that's the challenge that humanity's facing, is what's going to happen. And then is there a way to, because this is not going to go away, is there a way to actually, and don't forget, we're all on computers. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for the technology. I am not putting down the technology. My PhD is from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So I'm not putting down technology, but I'm saying we need to find a way for technology to actually live with, especially the digital technology, to live and amplify and enrich our analog potential. And that's kind of the challenge for human evolution at this moment in time. The universe could care less what happens on this little blue dot, but we'd better. And then there's global warming too. So, we're facing a lot of challenges where, we've given the planet a fever since the Industrial Revolution. And we know what the consequences of that are going to be. And we need to write ourselves something of a restraining order. And that can only come out of wisdom, and compassion and equanimity and clarity and loving kindness. So if these were important like 2,600 years ago, they're much more important now. And the fate of the world, in a sense, depends on all of us. That's the way I see it. How it will unfold, nobody knows. But at least we have a little bit of leverage, tiny bit of leverage. But when you add all the leverages together, it could look like love in a big way, and caring and wisdom and compassion. And that's what the new Pope is all about. That's what the Dalai Lama is all about. That's what Bishop Tutu was all about. These are all science and these, practices, contemplative practices from the great religions of the world and all of the various cultures of the world, including, sort of indigenous cultures. Indigenous societies have learned how to live on planet Earth for thousands and thousands of years. We've only been around, for, since like 4000 BC. And since, that's the age of agriculture or something like that. And the question is, can we learn to harness our own mental acuity and our own greed, hatred, and delusion and keep them in some kind of check or balance so that the greed, hatred, and delusion don't win out?
Sandra has raised her hand. You want to unmute yourself, Sandra?
Yes, thank you so much, John. This is amazing. I'm a fellow Cape Codder from Dennis, so I don't know
Wonderful.
Annie, but yeah, I actually just retired from Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School, where I got to know a couple of your grandchildren. So,
Oh, no
but
kidding. Wonderful.
yeah, Georgia comes to mind, and I can't remember your grandson's name, but they took French. I taught Spanish, but anyhow, the thing is that I have suffered for several decades with OCD. So that was interesting, Annie, that you brought up the OCD of your mom's dying thing. And anxiety is just it's really it plagues the mind. And through mindfulness, I have learned to deal with it and to live my life fully. And so, and people would say, well, just take a pill. And I would say, but my mind isn't broken. My brain's not broken. I mean, I'm not going to tell other people what to do, but that's just me. So, but my question or my query to you is, because I have family members who also suffer from OCD and anxiety, and but when I let them know what I'm doing, they don't seem to take it seriously. I don't want to hit them over the head because I know that that's not the way to do it. So, I mean, how do I open, we're all here and we all are believers and we know. How do we turn other people onto it without sounding like, oh, I'm telling you because I'm your sister. I'm telling you because I'm your mother,
Yeah, or you're part of a mindfulness cult.
Right. So I
Yeah.
know you don't have a lot of time, but is there a
No,
way to spread the practice?
we have plenty of time.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll mute myself. I want to hear what you have to say.
No, but what is the exact question?
So the question is, when I say to my loved ones, the people who have like maybe baggage with me, like my children, like my siblings, this is an awesome thing that
The
is helping me so
mindfulness
much.
practice?
Yes, but it's a hard thing, like you were
Don't
saying.
don't even try that. All you have to
So how?
do. Okay, so the answer is very simple. You already know it. It's be the love. That's it. Okay, as long as you start, sort of becoming a kind of proponent of mindfulness, and your life would be a little better if you meditated. That's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless, and it won't be true because they won't find the right glide path into the meditation. But if you be the meditation, in other words, you're not selling meditation to them, you're just letting it come out of you. You know what it looks like? It looks like love. Why? Because the meditation practice is actually a radical act of sanity and love. To just be fully present in this moment, in your heart, then they'll feel it, you'll have a better relationship, and the rest will take care of itself. And you can't script it. So that's kind of like a combination of a dance and a love affair and also wisdom, because you're not trying to convince anybody of what would be helpful to them. You're just letting your love sort of wash through over them. And I don't think there's anything else one can do. Yes, you can be helpful in whatever ways you can be helpful. You know, you can babysit for people, you can take care of whatever needs taken care of. But how you do it's the most important thing. If it's done out of mindfulness, out of heartfulness, out of compassion, out of loving kindness, then that's love. And that's what does all the work. And that's what transforms people. Even people who have resentment about other people. It's very hard to resent somebody who's given you, you know, what feels like authentic love, not performative love. Does that make any sense to you? And that's harder than
Yeah,
meditating. It's harder than
I know.
meditating.
I knew that was the answer.
Of
I
course you
guess,
did.
it's a dialogue, and so it's always good to be reminded, but I'm a teacher, and so I want to help and I want to change, and it just takes so long
Yeah,
to,
you can't change anybody else. You can help them, but you have to help them the way they need the help, not the way you need to help. And what they most need from you is one, don't give them a hard time unnecessarily, but be real and let that real be love. And you'll know how to do it because your heart is intelligent. It has this deep intelligence that sometimes we need permission to let it loose. And of course, it's hypocritical unless you're also loving yourself in just that way, because otherwise you'll have the best answers for how everybody else should be living their lives, but meanwhile you're not taking care of yourself, and everybody will recognize that as hypocrisy. So it has to be, there's no escaping from it having to be absolutely coming from the heart. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
No, I just thought maybe there was an easier way, but
No, there's
it
no,
is
I
the
don't
only
think,
way.
if there's an easier way, let me put it this way, if there's an easier way, I don't know it. And sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's really painful. I'm reading a book right now, The Good Life, that is the result of 80 years of a Harvard Medical School study of families that they tracked from 80 years ago. So now they're looking at the grandchildren as adults. And they're following a million different variables like physical variables, mental variables, family variables, disease variables, alcoholism, all sorts of things. And they're coming up with some really, really interesting perspectives on how to live a healthy, emotionally as well as physically healthy life. Good life. And it turns out that one of the people who is the head of the person who's the head of this study now, of course, it's been over 80 years, so there've been 4 heads. This guy is a meditation teacher, Robert Waldinger. He's a meditation teacher. He's also like, you know, a big Harvard Medical School professor. That never happened in the old days. There's a convergence of wisdoms that is really, really important. And when it comes to family, I think it'd be really good for a lot of us to read this book just to get a sense of, because they've got the data on like, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of family generations, you know, thousands of people in these 80 years. So it's kind of like there are a lot of fabulous resources for supporting us in what we most want to engage in.
Thank you.
Welcome. Do we have any other hands up?
Yeah, there's one, there's a couple questions
Oh, in the chat.
in the chat, and we should have time to get to all of them. But dear John, what are your own favorite micro practice in daily life? Is it possible to say so moment by moment? Thank you so much.
No, it's just what I shared with you. It's like this moment, just reminding myself over and over and over again, this moment. Or the way I like to say it sometimes when I'm guiding meditations is just this, just this. So just this moment, just this breath, just this having a conversation on Zoom, just this going to bed, just this being in the shower. It comes from a poem. It's the last four words of a poem that I love by a 18th century Japanese poet named Ryokan, who was like a Zen hermit who lived outside the village in the forest, and everybody thought he was nuts. And he wrote poetry and mended his robes by the moonlight, and sort of. And then he begged for his food, and monks, monastics, monks and nuns still do that in certain countries. They actually go on what are called alms rounds, and they depend on the community for their sustenance. If the people don't put food in their bowl, they don't eat. And he would go around with his begging bowl to this village, and of course everybody knew him. It was like 300 years ago, and so people didn't travel a lot, and he lived outside the village, and everybody kind of knew he was there. And he used to come into town and also play with the village children. And this poem is about that. So the poem, of course, was in Japanese, and I don't know Japanese, so I'm going to recite a translation in English, which I like a lot. And you'll hear the last line is just this, just this. So first we braid grasses and play tug of war. Then we take turns keeping a kickball in the air. I kick the ball and they sing. They kick the ball and I sing. Time is forgotten, the hours fly. People stop and stare. Why are you acting like such a fool? I could say something, but why? Do you want to know what's in my mind? Do you want to know, do you want to know what's in my heart? From the beginning of time, just this, just this. So I like that, just this. You can say that to yourself doing the dishes or loading the dishwasher or putting your children to bed or your grandchildren or going for a walk or holding someone's hand. You don't have to say it out loud. Just this means, are you here for it? Are you feeling it? And can you do that without building some great romantic story about it? But just let it be what it is. And trust in awareness without the story. Then life itself becomes the meditation practice, and everything becomes your teacher. Every moment becomes your teacher. And then, since the theme of this is micro practices, there's nothing but micro practices. Even in a 45-minute body scan, it's just this. And then at the end of 45 timeless minutes, you get through the body. But you could do it in one in-breath and one out-breath too. Just this. Maybe we should take a moment and everybody just feel the entirety of your body. Don't shift your posture or anything if you're lying down, standing, sitting, but just right in this moment, in no time, can you feel your whole body? Breathing, standing, breathing, sitting, breathing. And the answer is, of course you can. So what about now? Oh yeah, yeah. And now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now. So that can go on even while you're doing whatever you're doing. And it changes the doing. When the doing comes out of being, it's an entirely different kind of doing. Just this.
So it's almost like an internal clapper, or what? I forget.
The Muktak.
How do you spelling Muktak, by the way?
Moktak.
Not TikTok, Muktak.
Muktak.
Nice. Love it. There was a question, Randy, about, you mentioned the 8-week courses, and she's wondering what you're referring to. And in the chat, they explained MBSR, but
Okay. Well, I can say a word or two about MBSR. MBSR stands for Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And that's the name that we have given to a hospital-based program that takes people with chronic medical conditions who are getting some but not total benefit, if any benefit, from the healthcare system, from their traditional medical treatments, and asking them if there's not something that they can do for themselves as a complement to their medical treatments, whether it's for pain or whether it's for cancer or heart disease or whatever, that would in fact improve their quality of life and potentially their health. And so you can look that up. My first book has the title Full Catastrophe Living, and that is the curriculum of the MBSR program. And it gives you a lot of background, and then on stress, pain, illness, and the meditation practice, and then it gives you the entire 8-week sequence.
then we have another question. What about on-the-spot metta or on-the-spot Tonglen?
Absolutely. So metta is the Pali word for loving kindness. So on the spot metta, if I understand what is being asked, is when you meet someone on the street or even pass someone on the street, can you actually look at them with loving kindness from your heart? It's a practice. You can start with like people who are just passing you by. An advanced practice would be to do it with somebody who's panhandling. Okay, and notice, just walk by the person who's panhandling and notice what your physical and emotional, response is to walking in close proximity to somebody who wants something from you and you don't want them to be bothering you, or even you don't even necessarily want to be seeing them. Is that on them or is that on you? Where does compassion and equanimity fit in there? So in a sense, that person could be your greatest teacher, because they're pointing out like, I can be mindful and compassionate in theory, but when it appears in the form of a real person, then I don't like this, doesn't feel right. And I'm not going to give them any money. And, they didn't necessarily, what about just making eye contact? What about a smile? What about just recognizing their humanity and the fact that, under the other circumstances, it could be you on the street begging for money. So you see where this is going. I mean, it's a really powerful way of understanding interbeing, what Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing, or our interconnectedness, and the fact that when we contract around someone else's pain or feel aversion because someone's living on the street, we actually are dehumanizing them. That's not their fault. That's on us. And so that can become part of your meditation practice. And the cultivation of awareness can often lead to a kind of compassion that might, and not idiot compassion. I mean, you don't necessarily give somebody who's an alcoholic who says that they need dinner, $25 to go out and buy themselves dinner, because they might actually just buy alcohol with that $25. But, I've heard of people, have not done this myself, but where they'll take the person to a restaurant, buy them a real meal and pay for it. So, it's a question of like, well, what are the boundaries of one's own caring or compassion? And I'm not prescribing anything to anybody. I'm just pointing out that very often we live in a very kind of narrow bubble of our own creation, and then think really how generous we are. When we're in total control of that generosity, it may be more for us than for whoever the objects of the generosity are. Mindfulness, really useful under that circumstance.
Before we talked about the do, now I'm going to mention Harpo Marx. I remember there's this one Marx Brothers scene where, a beggar or someone on the street comes up to Harpo and says, "Can I have a dime for a hot cup of coffee?" He's on the street. He opens up his trench coat and he takes out a hot cup of
hot cup of coffee.
It's
right.
steaming. It was.
I remember that moment. That's a brilliant, classical moment in film.
So was that Tom Glenn or was that Metta?
So metta, again, is loving kindness, and Tonglen is exchanging self for other. So the Tonglen practice in the Tibetan practice is like you put yourself in the other person's shoes. You exchange them for you. And then you see more clearly what the need is, and you take on their suffering. So that's a very powerful practice, but it's something you have to be ready for, because when you're taking on suffering, you'd better have a way to transmute it, or you're going to actually just increase your own suffering. So these are all kind of meditation practices that really require a very strong foundation in mindfulness to develop a certain kind of stability in them. But generosity, just and mindful generosity, so that when you give somebody some money on the street, is it with eye contact and with kindness, or is it just kind of perfunctory to make yourself feel better? So these are all like mindful moments. Just we were talking about brief moments, like, bang, bang. So they happen. I mean, there's not any moment that's not a mindful moment if you're willing to show up in your life. Otherwise, you go on autopilot and then wake up when you get past the person panhandling on the street.
Philip has his hand up to ask a quick question. You could unmute yourself.
Sure. Can you hear me?
And say where you're calling from, Philippe.
I'm coming from Germany, actually, Hamburg.
Wonderful.
Stumbled across your work actually not too long ago, and I really, really like it. And I would love to ask you, because I'm 26 and I first stumbled across meditation when I was 19, 20, and I really got this spark of wow and being in the moment and really feeling the sense of connection. But over the years, it ebbed and flowed and life came in between and I forgot it. But I always kind of jumped back, and it always was this root within me that I never really wanted to let go. But I also very much feel there's much more that I didn't really find, or like on the way to be finding. And I wanted to ask you, because you have many, many, many years more in this space and so much devotion to it, how did you manage to keep this love towards mindfulness and the dedication and practice ongoing, even though there is many ups and downs. And
Yeah.
what would you recommend to deepen that path? Because I really think it's the right path.
Well, I love your question, and I love the way you've posed it, which tells me that um, you have a very sincere interest, and that sincerity is very important. Okay, because it's not about meditation, really. It's about who are you? What is your life? What is a good way for you to live and express your genius? Okay. And I use genius in the same sort of frame as Goethe, your intrinsic genius. And so the forms don't matter that much. I mean, there are many different meditation traditions, and they all teach in slightly different ways. The way I speak about it is that there are many doors into awareness, but there are many doors, but there's only one room. Your first approximation. So the room is the room of your own heart, your own goodness, your own 26-year-old, being that has so much future in front of you. And the way to live the future optimally is to make sure you're in the present moment, because the future is a sum of many, many, many present moments. And if you're always living for some ideal out there in the future, you may lose touch with who's caring, who cares deeply enough. And obviously, it's late at night there. You're online doing this with somebody on the other side of the ocean. So that's a kind of an example of your commitment in a certain way. And the fact that you raised your hand and asking this kind of a question. So what I would say is, I started a lot of things when I was in my 20s that I no longer do. A lot of things, including motorcycles and, all sorts of different kinds of things. But I also started meditating when I was 21 years old, and I've never stopped. So that's 60 years of continual practice. And the reason I didn't stop is because it was impossible to stop. Because to stop would mean, in a certain way, missing my moments. It's not about like looking a certain way or, having labels that people attach to you. But to live the life that's truly yours to live, you can't do it without awareness. You cannot do it without awareness, and you can't do it without kindness towards yourself. And then you can't also do it without taking risks. So it's really good to kind of take certain kinds of risks. And those kinds of risks have to do with asking deep questions like, who am I? Who am I? And then being honest about it. And so you're not your name, you're not your age, you're not the story of me. Who am I? Well, the most honest answer would be, I don't know. That not knowing is really profound. All great scientists, Einstein was German. There's so many great German scientists, right? What makes a great scientist, German or otherwise? What makes a great scientist is the ability to not know, to take everything that you know up to the point where you don't know the next thing, and then stay here in the not knowing. My Korean Zen teacher used to call it don't know mind. You keep don't know mind, don't know. And then trust that actually awareness, as I said before, is a superpower. So when you learn to actually tap into it and let it become your home or your default mode, as I've been saying, then you will not miss your moments and you'll make maximal use of them, and you'll let the world and life make maximal use of you too. It's like we always ask, well, how can I, get ahead for myself in the world, and of course that's an important question. But an equally important question is, since you're a product of the world, how can I give back to the world that actually produced me? That's a really powerful question to ask. And then to not try to fill it with answers, but to just listen. Just listen.
Be there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very,
Guten
very
Abend
honored.
and guten Nacht. It's really nice talking with you.
Totally. Thank you so much. If I have one little extra question,
Yeah,
because
sure.
every day in the morning in the car, and there's just one thing from your book about wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
And there's one thing that
Yeah, but in German they didn't translate it that way. The German
horrible
title,
title.
Im Alltag Ruhe finden.
Exactly. I
And
listened to your voice.
Oh,
I
good.
didn't
Okay, so
bother with the German
you're
one.
English. Of course, everybody in Germany speaks better English than we do. So
I
thank you.
think I
So you're
managed.
reading it in English.
Yeah, and listening
Yeah.
in the car on the way
Okay.
to work, and I was stumbling over it because when you said, and that really stuck with me, and I don't really know why, but now since I'm talking to the author, it
Great.
was the sentence of don't tell anyone that you are meditating.
Right.
And I was like, in the moment, like, why shouldn't I tell, right? But then kind of over the days, I just stuck with it. And it's not that I go out and talk, but really said to it, okay, even if I will be asked, I will not really tell about it. And it kind of gave me a good feeling and a more feeling of it being for myself.
Right.
Still wanted to ask you, like,
Okay. That's
reason behind
it's a wonderful question. No one's ever asked me that question before, I don't think.
it.
So it's a wonderful question. Yeah, I think in the first 10 or 20 years that you're meditating, it's a good thing not to tell anybody that you're meditating because it will just create a story. I'm meditating and I'm getting all these benefits from it. Or I'm meditating and, whatever it is, it's a story. And the whole point of the meditation is to liberate yourself from the story, not 10 years from now, but right in this moment, right? So that's why it's like you don't want to get into conversations about meditation and my meditation practice unless you have a very good friend who's also a meditator, like a Dharma sister or a Dharma brother, that you can, or a teacher that really cares about you and where you can really talk mutually about your meditation practices. So in that case, yeah, find one person like that. But otherwise, better not to talk about it. Just every time you have the impulse, and I think I said this in the book, every time you have the impulse to talk about your meditation practice, get your ass on the cushion and meditate a little bit more.
And I was really laughing because, like, don't tell anyone. And then the next sentence was like, in 10 or 20 years. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's.
Well, I like to be reasonable about
Yeah,
things.
yeah. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. You're really inspiring me to move
You're
forward.
very welcome. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
So,
Wow, look at what time it is.
yeah, it's actually that time. So, I don't know if we have time to do a closing meditation, or do you have a closing statement, or
Well,
what?
how
what would make
about a micro meditation to close? Okay.
perfect?
Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds
Okay,
good.
it's
Thanks,
already
everyone.
over. Oh, it's already over, Steve.
Oh, come on.
Well, we can have another one. Okay? Want another one?
Another one, please. Yeah.
Okay. It's that simple. I see people thumbs up and shooting off hearts. Yeah, and it's moment by moment by moment by moment. So now we're all going to get offline and we're going to do whatever it is that we're going to be doing. Are you going to be aware going downstairs or going upstairs or going to bed or seeing your children or whatever it is? It's like there's no end to this meditation practice, and it's all brief moments. Okay, and do it with a lot of love and kindness towards yourself, so that it's not something where you're blaming yourself for not being good at it, or you're shaming yourself. It's got nothing to do with anything like that. We're not idealizing anything. We're just being aware of how much we're unaware. And as soon as you're aware of being unaware, you're aware. Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve. I really appreciate your hosting this, and just a deep bow to you for all the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, and thanks. We kind of had a global gathering.
Yeah.
That was just phenomenal. And we'll be you'll get a link.
So maybe we can unmute everybody and put ourselves on the gallery view and just say goodbye.
That's a great idea. Let's
Good night,
see.
John. Good night, Steve.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Goedenavond.
Thank you.
Hartelijk
Gallery
bedankt.
view, gallery view.
Thank
Okay.
you for such a wonderful session. Excellent.
Good night, everybody. Goodbye.
Love you, John.
Thank you so
It's
much.
amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you very
coming.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Keep up the one great work.
Thank you very much.
Bye, John.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The little guy with the white hair.
See your friend.